welcome to our first Women in Science and Graphics discussion. I'm Izabella and I'm joined today by our co-founder, Sarah Winterbottom. To tell you a bit more about Women in Science and Graphics, our mission is to inspire, encourage and promote women within the industry. Whilst being part of a group of like-minded individuals where we can share ideas and opinions. We aim to open more opportunities in the industry for women whilst collaborating with the education sector and encourage the next generation to be aware of what this industry holds for them. I will now pass you on to Sarah, who will introduce our speakers.
Thank you, Isabel. Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Winterbottom and thank you for joining us on our first Women in Science and Graphics event. As disappointing as it is not to be able to meet face to face, this is the next best thing. And virtual events have become more and more acceptable over the last few weeks and months, as Marcus and Karis are only too aware of. It's a pleasure to have such a great panel today, and we thank you very much for giving up your time to spend with us. I'm just going to do a brief introduction of our speakers today, and then I'll let them take over. We have Sophie Kirby, who is Head of Education and Partnerships at the printing charity. We have Marcus Timson, Director of Future Print, Karis, Director of Karis Copp Media. We have Sam Armstrong, Director of Make It Happen. And we have Ian Hoole, who is Director of the Sign Group in Leeds. So thank you for joining us, everyone, and I'll hand back to Isabel.
Thank you, Sarah. So what we want to do today is just to have a conversation with each speaker to get their thoughts, opinions and ideas. So we're going to start with Sophie from the printing charity. Welcome today, Sophie. Thanks for being here. Please tell us a bit more about yourself and the printing charity.
Sure. Well, I'm Sophie Kirby, and as you've heard, I'm Head of Education and Partnerships at the printing charity. And we're the national charity for people in print, paper, publishing, packaging and the graphic arts. So we're here to help. At the heart of our offering is a practical, emotional and financial support service where we support people who need our help in times of hardship. That means that we have available for those who work in the industry or who have retired from it, a 24-hour a day, 7-day a week, 365-day a year helpline. And that helpline is staffed by BACP accredited counsellors who can support anyone from our sector with their emotional well-being and their mental health. This service also offers citizens style advice and guidance, and those trained specialists can offer practical advice and a helping hand to make any sort of plan for any subject you might imagine, whether it's debt or budgeting or legal advice or work advice, anything you can really imagine. Okay. So what is this helpline? Well, it is telephone based, and our strategy is to roll it out across everybody who works in those sectors that we support. And we want to do that mainly via employers, because that allows us to access great numbers of people who work in our industry. So right now we have 79 companies offering this support to their employees, and that ranges from large organisations who have thousands of employees down to the more typical with sort of 50 to 70 employees. And we like to say we're offering big business support for small business employees. As well as that, we also offer financial support for everyday expenditure or one-off costs where the people from our sector just can't make ends meet and they fall below what we describe as our minimum income standard. Back at the beginning of 2019, we undertook an impact survey on the work that we do, specifically around the financial support. And we asked the beneficiaries of this support a number of questions, but two of them I thought might be quite thought-provoking for you today. 90% of respondents to our survey said that the charity support helped them worry less about buying food. And 87% said that the support helped them worry less about turning on their electricity or heating. So we really are here to help those who need our support.
That's incredible.
We take a holistic approach to reviewing applications. So it's not just about money, it's also about giving people a well-rounded approach of support. We look to drive positive change with them. It might be helping them gain access to the benefits that they are entitled to. It might be helping them with specific charitable support for managing debt issues, for example, or it might be getting back into employment, and that employment might be in our sector or outside of our sector. So that means that we're constantly signposting our beneficiaries to a large number of other support organisations, and we maintain a relationship with them at all time, and they know that if they are in a position where they no longer need our support, they can of course come back to us in the future. But that's not everything that we do. Over and above this, we invest in a number of projects and initiatives every year that support our charitable objects. And these often focus on driving diversity and access to our industry, which is why the Women in Signs and Graphics group is of so much interest to me. For example, this afternoon and tomorrow, we're funding a workshop for 250 young people from North East England focused on getting into book publishing. It's led by training experts who normally charge for this service, and because publishing is a London-centric sector, lots of applications for jobs and norms such as unpaid internships and the requirements for master's degrees, it can be really hard for those from a working class background or underrepresented geographies like the North East to break into. So we are funding that, and we hope that those 250 young people who benefit from that training and that advice are one step ahead in gaining access to the sector that they want to work within. We also have 2 sheltered homes, and they're in Basildon and Bletchley, and they are for those over 60 years old who have retired from the industry or dependents of those who have retired from the industry. And this year, despite COVID, we have managed to undertake a multi-million-pound upgrade project on them, which is almost complete. And that has seen new stair lifts, new lifts, new windows, new doors, redecoration, new boilers, you name it, we've done it.
It's so important, I think, for people to know about the print charity. What I've learned when speaking with people across the industry is that not many people are aware of the printing charity and the work that the amazing work that you do to help people, especially right now when people are struggling more than ever, maybe, especially within this industry, really. It would be really interesting to get your thoughts on this, Sophie. Obviously, I assume that you've probably seen an increase in people reaching out to you since March. And it would also be interesting if you have seen this increase, but also to kind of get your idea, your predictions for the future, and what do you think the next year will hold for the industry, really.
Sure. Well, COVID was unexpected for us, but as a charity, we're proud that we have continued to meet the needs of everyone that we have supported. We've switched to working from home, and we've met all of our obligations and more. We've adapted, we've stepped up, and for example, during the first lockdown, we made additional welfare calls to our most vulnerable beneficiaries, ensuring that they were okay and offering them a friendly voice at the end of the phone, because many of them live alone and obviously had to shield due to their age. And we pride ourselves in that relationship that we have with the people that we support. But actually, you might be surprised to hear that applications for financial support haven't risen significantly during this period. We are ready. We're prepared for any impact that may come to us, for example, with the end of the furlough scheme in March or whenever that may be, depending on the Chancellor's further changes. And we always stay informed on the landscape within which we operate, whether that be the threat to the pension triple lock, the unfolding debt crisis, or the job creation activity that's happening, for example, the Kickstarter scheme at the moment. We have been in existence as a charity for almost 200 years, but actually we're very forward thinking, and we're always looking to change the way that we operate to meet the needs of people today and in the future. So we haven't seen those people come to us, but what we have seen through the work that we do with companies on the helpline is the impact of mental health. And so we think that mental health will continue to be high on the agenda. And in 2021, where the focus has been on businesses in 2020, we feel that the impact will be more on mental health and the personal impact of the crisis on well-being in 2021. And I do have some stats to share with you regarding the impact on mental health right now. The Office of National Statistics have said that more than 2/3 of adults in the UK report feeling somewhat or very worried about the effect that COVID is having on their life. And the most common issues that they cite are worries about the future, feeling stressed or anxious. Mind did a similar survey and have said that their mental health got worse during lockdown. Over 60% of adults said their mental health got worse during lockdown. Almost everybody who is trying to seek access to support is struggling to seek that access because of the impact upon the NHS and the available services. And so overall, you can see how we're building towards what we imagine will be a mental health crisis in 2021. But with the services that we have described, the helpline, we are doing our bit to support those people who need our support.
That's fantastic. Just knowing that you are there, that's why we want to get the word out there and the information out there as much as possible. Then through our group, of course, through the Women in Science and Graphics group, that you are there and you are able to help, which is so important right now.
Thank you. And we're absolutely here to help everybody in the sector, whether you're male or female. And you can find out more information about us from our website and follow us on social media. And in confidence, you can access those services. If you're an employer, then you can come to us to share the work that we do with your team, or if you're an individual, you can seek support. And we, perhaps not surprisingly, do see more inquiries from women for those mental health and wellbeing services. And so we absolutely will continue to challenge ourselves so that we can meet everybody's needs and challenge the stigma that's associated with mental health and wellbeing, particularly for men. But we'll also continue to drive those other activities that we do as well and drive positivity into the industry. For example, in the new year, we'll open our next round of our awards programme. So we run the largest single awards programme for young people in the sector. And that's a programme for people aged 18 to 30 who can apply to us for a grant of up to £1,500 for their training and development. And every year we award between 90 and 100 young people that type of support. So we're there to support when they need us, but we're also there to support with training, development and progression within the industry.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Sophie. We truly hope that people listening today will be able, if they will ever need, they will reach out to you, at least to have a conversation and see if you can help in any way. I think a conversation is always worth having. So yeah, thank you so much, Sophie. We really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie. We're really happy to be able to help promote the industry, the charity with you. It's frightening, you know, probably how many people don't know that you exist, and you know, the amount of work that you're doing and the efforts that you're putting in is really valuable. And it's quite an honour to have a charity specifically for our industry. So let's help to get the word out there. So thanks ever so much for joining us today. I'll move over to Karis. Welcome, Karis. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're just wondering how the media sees the industry when it comes to gender diversity. Obviously, you have lots of experience within this field, and also involved with lots of other groups, you know, such as ours. So we were just wondering, you know, what your thoughts are.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you so much for having me, and hi to everybody. Yeah, I think when it comes to the media, I think, you know, from a journalist's perspective, you know, there is that responsibility to, you know, tell the whole story, to highlight the positives and the negatives. You do have to have that balanced view. So I would say, you know, one of the most important things from my perspective is to ensure that initiatives and resources like Women in Sign and Graphics are kind of receiving that adequate coverage. You know, people need to know what's out there, and, you know, in the trade media, people need to know that there are these groups. There's Women in Sign and Graphics. There are groups like Women in Print UK in the US. There's Girls Who Print, Women in Print from the Printing United Alliance, Women Leading the Industry, which is from the Sign Association in the US, I think, and obviously we just heard from Sophie about the printing charity and the incredible work that they do. And I think specifically, you know, Sophie was talking about signposting. There's, you know, on their website, there's links to things like Refuge, you know, things that are, you know, specifically, you know, mostly women that need those kind of services, and that's to know that that's there, and you can go on there as someone in the print industry and find all that information, especially if you're struggling, is amazing, and it needs to be highlighted by the trade media. And we need to be profiling women in the industry, you know, and showing that showing women in positions of leadership, showing women who are entrepreneurs in the industry. And then on the other side of that, kind of talking about that balanced view that I was talking about, there are a lot of negatives. There's not enough women in leadership. There's not enough women in general in the industry. I was looking at a study from the BPIF, I think it's from 2018 now, but it was, you know, 69% male, 31% female, and quite a staggering gender pay gap of kind of 11% in men's favor in the printing industry that they highlighted there. So, you know, there is that responsibility to paint the full picture, but to show that there are disparities. And, you know, does the media do enough? That's something that I think is an important question to ask. You know, I started up my career in the print industry, and as part of the trade media, and I still do on a freelance basis, and it's not, you know, an easy task for trade media, I will say. There's time constraints, there's information overload, and there's, you know, small kind of stretched editorial teams that are covering, you know, an industry like this. It's a huge industry. There's a lot to cover. You know, when you're only a small team, things move quickly. So there are a lot of challenges for the trade media, for journalists in the industry. But, you know, on the other side, it is jarring if you're particularly a woman to flick through a trade publication and see nothing but kind of white man after white man. And it's jarring to see panels that are all white men. You know, people need to see themselves represented in this industry. And that is something we can do more about. There are challenges, but, you know, it's a responsibility to ensure everyone's stories are being told. So I think, you know, the view from the trade media is, you know, we know that there's more work to do. We know that there's more ways that we could be shining a light on the disparity and the kind of the pay disparity, the leadership roles disparity. So it's that balanced view, but it would be the easiest thing if you were to just go on the information that you receive from PR and just the images and press releases. It is going to just be white man after white man, and there is a responsibility to show that that's not all there is in the print industry. So yeah, that's what I would say there on in terms of the view.
Okay, no, that's great. Thanks, Karis. And hopefully having this new group for us is really about promoting and pushing women in the industry. There does need to be more of us. It's better than it used to be, but there's always room for improvement. And in this group, we didn't really want to sort of dwell too much on things like pay gaps. We know that exists and it needs to be corrected, but really for us it was the passion that we have in the industry, and just really encouraging and helping more women to come forward. And having a session like this is great, and what differentiates us is that we're happy to have people like Marcus and Ian involved. We want everybody to help with this, and yeah, there's a long way to go, but hopefully together we can make another small difference. So that's great. Thanks for your feedback, Karis.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a long way to go, and you're right. It's something that needs to be tackled by women and men in the industry. It's great to be having these conversations and for people to know that they're represented. And I think as a woman in the industry, kind of listening to this and hearing about the printing charity and everything else that people are doing. And I think especially, I know it's a shame that we can't do this in person due to COVID, but hopefully what it will mean is more people can access it. That's the great thing about virtual events, and it's something that we saw with the Future Print Virtual Summit. More people get to access that information, and that's the great thing about online events. So hopefully there's women that wouldn't have been able to make it to the physical event that are able to come, and I think that's we've all seen that COVID, I spoke about this kind of earlier on in the pandemic, that there's many ways in which it's affecting women in different ways, and in some ways worse ways than men in some areas. There's reports from the World Economic Forum and other organizations saying that it's really, the pandemic is going to exacerbate gender equality, and we're seeing that women make up more social and healthcare roles. They tend to be primary caregivers. They do 3 times as much unpaid care work as men, and something I've really seen through the pandemic is so much support by doing virtual events like this, by having free resources like this available. Really incredible. And I think for women especially, it's going to be so useful to have places like this where they can listen and kind of network. And I know we'll be having kind of an open conversation as well, so just knowing that you've got somewhere where it's just a kind of a safe space, as they say, to discuss those issues. So I think it's there are positives and negatives to the fact that we can't be together in person, I would say.
Yes, absolutely. But I think you touch on a good point, is the fact that the virtual events are much more inclusive. They take up less time, they don't cost money to get to, so certain employees perhaps wouldn't have had the opportunity to get involved in such things. So for me, that's like a huge positive, and hopefully will allow a few more women to speak up and to be heard. I've certainly got involved in quite a few more things than I would have done normally, during lockdown, and I've really enjoyed it because it's great networking, and you're always learning something. So yeah, that's great. Thank you, Karis.
Yeah, at the minute it's important to do something for all of us, to come together and work together and stick together. That's why we're here all today, and that's why Sarah and I started the group. So yeah, thank you so much, Karis, for that. It was very informative. It's good to know where the media stands when it comes to gender diversity as well. So thank you. Perfect. So now we've got Marcus as well, from who's director of Future Print. Welcome, Marcus.
And thank you for having me and for being part of today. It's I think it's quite enlightening to invite men to be part of this, and not only that, I think one of the things that perhaps men have misunderstood over the years is that actually men can be feminists and care about fairness.
Absolutely.
And I think there is a community of people in the print industry that would respond well to this. So thanks for being part of it. And, obviously I hope I add some value to the discussion as well.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So yeah, we look forward to seeing your presentation on leadership and adaptability, Matt. So please, thank you.
Okay, yeah. So a few slides here really around leadership and adaptability, and I think they're obviously relevant to anyone, whether you're man or woman, but I've tried to focus a little bit around leadership, because I think obviously that shapes culture and reflects who we are as people and who we are as an industry. So if we look to where we are now, and you probably recognize this car used in Back to the Future, we kind of went to bed in 2020 and we've woken up in 2030. I think the acceleration of change has been quite staggering, and on a social, economic, political and technical level. And I think that's really exciting, isn't it? I think things were changing anyway, clearly before, in terms of the sense that the movement towards fairness and equality and all of those things was taking place. And the behavior that perhaps shaped certain industries 10 years ago is just no longer tolerated. I remember going to my first show in the print industry back in, I think it was my first festival back in 2007. And some of the booths and how people were behaving and how they were displaying with models and so on and so forth. I just don't think that's accepted behavior any longer. So it was changing anyway, but we've just gone through a period of rapid change. We've seen that in terms of Black Lives Matter. And I think that stands true with the discussion around fairness and equality. And I think that's a really positive thing. And I think that's not lose sight of that the pandemic has led, as you said earlier, to some positive things too. The Future Print Summit, as Karis was alluding to, actually 45% of our attendants were female. And having been someone that's run shows and events in the print industry for a long time, that doesn't ring true. And I think there's a sense, trying to think empathetically really around, shows that are dominated by middle-aged men, middle-aged white men, maybe women feel excluded. Maybe women don't feel it represents them and it's something they want to get involved in. So I think as event organizers as well, we're trying to adapt to that. It is a key word, adaptability. It's an obvious thing to say, but really it's the quality of being able to adjust to new conditions. And I do think the print industry is obviously in the throes of that. We've heard what the printing charity are able to support people through, and that some of the support they're giving obviously is going to hopefully help people to adapt. One of the key things I think, which is linked to leadership, which helps effective adaptability, is really thinking as an individual. And I think thinking through this, as you've said, and Karis was saying there about, women perhaps not feeling part of the industry or having that voice and visibility. I think behaving as an individual, individuality leads to truth and enables you to adapt. And I think there's many of us within society who prefer conformance, and what that does, it doesn't lead to change, and certainly doesn't lead to adaptability. And so I think in terms of thinking ourselves as leaders and individuals is a key thing. That doesn't mean not caring for other people. It just means about having singularity of thought and being able to adapt and move with change. It oddly, I think the last 4 years, obviously shaped a lot by what's happening in the world of politics, has been a temporary age of toxic leadership. By that I mean, if you know, obviously I'm alluding to Trump here. These toxic traits are, I think, don't chime with how the world needs to move forward and how businesses need to be led. Toxic traits tend to be autocratic. These kind of leaders certainly are quite narcissistic, manipulative, can be quite intimidating, are overly competitive. I think, if I'm going to be controversial here, they tend to be the traits more of male leadership, generally speaking, overly competitive to the extent to which, even if people think they're wrong or know they're wrong, they'll still argue the case because they want to win an argument. And they can be discriminatory. And I think we've seen loads of examples of this style of leadership with Trump in particular, where he's displayed that brazenly. Now, that's an extreme example. And if we kind of flip to the other extreme, the other side of the world with Jacinda Ardern, I think we see a brilliant example, hopefully, of how the world needs to go forward in terms of a much more feminine style, which is much more around kindness, compassion, care for the whole, not care for the individual in the same way. Clearly a purpose, but actually, you know, it's easy to think perhaps if you're more of an autocratic leader, well, you know, that's a little bit weak. Well, it isn't, is it? Because it's very strong. Because what's happened is she is the most popular prime minister New Zealand has had in the last 100 years. She just won a landslide victory. She's been incredibly decisive in dealing with COVID and also dealing with terrorism. And she's very collaborative and empathetic. And I think those sort of traits as leaders go is a really positive, and actually that is the future. Research wise, I would suggest that actually this rings true as well. Jim Collins wrote a book called From Good to Great, and he studied probably 50 of the world's high performing businesses across industry, and really analyzed them in terms of their kind of character traits. One of the key character traits that he discovered that each one of these businesses, whether they're led by male or female, by the way, but it was a thing called level 5 leadership. And he discovered that the leaders of these businesses were not rock star leaders, were not autocratic leaders, placed the business before themselves, were concerned about what was going to happen after their leadership, were not self-promoters, were strong leaders and committed and all of those things, but actually much more of the Jacinda Ardern type of leader than the actual Donald Trump type of leader. So I think all of these things really are positive for women in science and graphics and women in business generally, that I think the world's tipping towards a much more of a balance, but actually much more of a feminine style of leadership. And obviously I think that's important. Now, diversity is also a key issue, of which gender balance is part of. But actually diversity leads to huge performance benefits. It's proven in study of teams and team performance that people have a mixture of abilities and a mixture of backgrounds simply leads to better performance. It's kind of leading a bit on from the kind of conformity thing. If you get a load of people conforming to the same school of thought, you're just going to get the same results. And over time that will deplete. So people that are creative and the right brainers work well with people that are left brainers. Obviously having both enables you to deliver and execute, but also to innovate. And I think having teams with a mixture of people, male, female, and from a variety of different cultures and so on, will best equip your business going forward. Also, in terms of one step on from that, in terms of cutting through and as leaders inspiring people, I think we can all become better at storytelling. And storytelling is one of those things often in technical markets that gets overlooked because people tend to think technically and talk about technical things. And while that's understandable and has some value, a way to really inspire people is to actually tune in our story to both an authentic perspective from who we represent and the business we represent and our values and the benefits of our ideas, but also to help really inspire and motivate both people that work for us, but also our customer. And it helps us cut through. Storytellers that have purpose, storytellers that have a cause, we remember, and we remember what they represent. TED's a great resource, TED.com. It has some amazing female speakers on it. And I think, I recognize that visibility over history is poor when it comes to female leaders. So when you look back at history, people pop out, Martin Luther King, Mandela, and so on. You look on TED and some of the speakers on there, like Brene Brown, talks about the power of vulnerability. Susan Cain talks about the power of introverts. It's a great resource to kind of go, okay, let's find our purpose, find our cause, and develop our story. It isn't purely an emotional thing either. It's biology, because we respond well to stories. What happens is when we listen to a story, our brain emits kind of chemicals, and those chemicals enable us initially to pay attention, because people start, you start recognizing, and the hormones start flowing, and also feeling empathy. And when we're trying to persuade or inspire or motivate, those chemicals are really, really powerful ways of enabling people to feel inspired, but also to remember who you are. And I think when we're trying to find our voice, or we're trying to raise our visibility, because I think we need to give greater voice to women, but equally women perhaps can improve, or because they're not as aggressive in some respects as men are in the same way, finding that voice and finding that story could be really beneficial. So a great book is The Storyteller's Secret. Carmine Gallo wrote it, and he discovered that actually 65% of the greatest storytellers, or the storytellers, invest 65% of their story to triggering emotion through narrative. And I think in a lot of technical industries, we focus more on the facts, figures, and statistics and credibility, which is boring, basically. You don't remember that, focusing on the emotion through the narrative. And this is taken from a TED talk as well, that again is free and easy to download and check out. So really going back to the beginning in terms of adaptability, I think going forward, we need to develop a style called adaptive leadership, which is enables much more flexibility. That adaptive style is more found, I think, in a kind of female style leadership. It's around collaboration and care for the group, as opposed to individual self-promotion. Independence and inquisitiveness, really important. It gives you that flexibility, enables you to stand out from the crowd. A culture that tolerates mistakes. Trump's presidency certainly did not do that. Resilience and grit, obviously, is always an important thing. A key thing here, I think, prioritizing exploration over exploitation. By that, I mean having an inquisitive and a culture that looks at new ideas, that doesn't necessarily just do this same old thing over and over again, because obviously in the industry, certain industries, that leads to a depletion of resources and revenue, but also diversity. Have a diverse team of right and left brainers. But I think the future's bright. I think things have accelerated. I think now hopefully is the time for more women to be visible. I think, to be fair, a lot of men suffer from unconscious bias, and I don't think that's intentional. I think, I'll be completely honest, perhaps I have too, but I think there's more people like me out there that are prepared to collaborate and help, because I think it's a really positive thing for the future. So thanks for letting me present and be part of this.
Thank you so much, Marcus. That was really great to listen and listen to your thoughts on this. Like you said earlier when you started talking, that things right now in 2020 are done so different to the way they were 13, 15, even 10 years ago, and I definitely think that we are moving into the right direction. And I'm sure there's a lot more conversations to be had and a lot more changes to be made, but we're definitely going into the right direction. And it is also very, very important representation, because you're thinking of younger people or children who are in education, and especially for women to see themselves represented in an area that makes them think they can do that, that is something they can do, that is something they want to do. So that, I think that is very important. So thank you very much for that.
No problem. Thank you.
Right, so yeah, Sarah, if you want to take over now.
Thank you, Marcus. Welcome, Sam.
Hello.
Hi. Yeah, we were wondering, in your role as, training, if you've actually seen an increase in the number of women that are attending your courses.
Yeah, I did have a look before I came on to this morning, because I thought it would be an interesting thing for me to see, because sometimes the perception is that you're sitting here and you think, oh, there's more women today. So last week, for instance, all of the people in the room were women, probably the first time. Obviously, we're much smaller groups. When I say, look, there's only 4 of us in here, but it was the first time I'd actually had just 4 ladies in the workshop room with me. We've been running the training for just over 3 years at this point. And I must admit, I can't recall the first year. It was all a bit of a blur, trying to find my feet with doing so. But certainly last year and then this year, though obviously it has changed as of March, but certainly last year we had 24% of the people that were actually on the training were female. And this year it's gone up to 38% of the people on the training program have been female. And I've also found it quite interesting that when we originally started, they were sort of the ladies that were joining us on the days were predominantly marketing and graphic designers, and it's heading more towards project managers and business development, actually, again in the last couple of years. So again, I think potentially women are seeing more of an opportunity to join. It's I absolutely love the industry, as you know, Sarah. I get fully engaged in it. I submerge myself into the training. I mean, you've been on the training program. I get very tiggerish throughout the day, and to actually on a number of occasions, whether it's been male or female, but in particular, I do recall a couple of younger ladies joining us on the training program and actually walking away and saying, you have inspired me to continue in the industry. And what a lovely thing to hear.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's what we need. We need to have more of. So I'm really encouraged to hear that, that's happening. And I know how passionate you are about the industry, and having attended one of your courses myself, then I have first-hand experience, so that's brilliant. But obviously based on what you've said and seeing an increase in the amount of women attending the courses, I mean, what do you think women, or why do you think women would be attracted to the industry, for example?
There's a number of factors. I think you have to be, and again, this is purely my opinion, I think you have to be super organised to be in this industry, and actually creative. I don't know from Ian's perspective at the Sign Group, but I know from speaking to him previously that again, having worked with them, actually just finding things that are a little bit different. How do you stand out from the crowd? And actually having a bit of a flair for design or creativity. I don't think any of us wake up when we're children go, do you know what, I really got to be in signs or printing. Which of us did that? None of us, okay? Or somebody's going to say they did, but
Nope.
And it's quite a regular conversation that we actually have on the training program. So therefore, what does draw us in? And I do think quite often it would be sort of the graphic design side of things that might draw people in. And I do find also customer service seems to be coming back and being better. I saw it kind of go quite sloppy for a period of time, where people weren't necessarily going that extra mile, or they weren't putting themselves out, making that extra bit that makes that client feel special. Whereas it's one of the things I talk about on a regular basis, being consultative, not doing the hard sell. And I think, again, maybe this is just my opinion, but I just see a lot of females coming in with that sort of nurturing side, whether it's that mothering side, and actually want to work with and adopt. And, do you know what? I just want to work with you. Am I right or wrong? I don't know, but I mean that's kind of what I see, Sarah.
Yeah, no, I can see where you're going with that. But on the flip side, what do you think would put women off joining the industry?
Oh, I could think of a few comments, but maybe not for,
for
here. Well, I mean, probably in my very early days of being in the industry, and I've been in the industry for 19 years, of actually being told that I shouldn't go on the shop floor because I could be a distraction. I mean, I'm just saying as it is. It's happened. It's been said. So why shy away from that? I mean, only in the last, I think, probably 5 years, going to not name any names, but actually speaking to a lady in the industry who had turned up to site to meet a client. And when it came round to actually doing the site measurements, she was asked, where is the man that's going to come and measure? Like she wasn't capable of using a tape measure. So those kind of things could put people off.
Yes.
That probably would say it as it is. But at the same token, I just think that lots of that has changed. It still does exist to a small amount, but actually I'm seeing a lot of really, really amazing women coming in and going, do you know what, I can do this. And actually just becomes irrelevant, because it doesn't matter what sector you're in, that culture is always going to exist somewhere, isn't it? And it's just rising above that and saying, do you know what, I am going in the factory, tough. I am going to go and distract. I don't know. But if it's in a positive way, then fantastic. I mean, my point was always that I was always prepared to put myself on the shop floor and stick down locators, mark templates, and chuck myself in, so that there wasn't that, you must be in the office. You must, I don't know, go and make the tea. I don't know. That's probably going a bit carried away. But there could be that perception. And I think that is very dramatically changing, and certainly has changed very much so in the last 10 years. I mean, the scenarios I've given you are sort of from 19 years ago, and I think Marcus said it. I definitely recall going to the trade shows where you had got, for want of a better word, the dolly birds on the stands, and I'm not sure what people were looking at, but it wasn't always perhaps the quality of the exhibition stand that you'd got.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very happy to say that we've sort of progressed from that. And I guess, if we're honest, we've all got stories that we could tell, and some would make your toes curl. And fortunately, for people like us, we're still here to tell the tale. What worries me is the amount of people that have perhaps been put off from the industry because they weren't able to deal with that. So that's one of the main reasons for me is to setting up a group like this, is to share, inspire, and hopefully those things that you've mentioned, Sam, will be said and happen less and less. And we can move the whole thing forward. So yeah, it's interesting to get your perspective on it, and I knew you'd be honest, so thanks for that.
Maybe a little bit too honest at times, but that's the reality. Let's not shy away from things Absolutely. That do happen. It's a bit tongue in cheek, and yes, it was said, but at the end of the day, sometimes we can all tease, we can all have a bit of banter at some points, but at the end of the day, it's just going, well, actually, yeah, if you're going to make silly little comments like that, okay, well, actually, you know me very well, Sarah, I'd chuck my own comments back.
Likewise.
But yeah, we're at work for a massive chunk of our lives. I want to go into work and I just want to crack on. I want to get on with people around me. And to use some words from a very lovely lady in the industry, she was saying to me, it's, it's very much all about visibility and perception. And so actually, by actually having more visibility of more ladies, and I think Karis touched upon it, about seeing women in press, is that perception that there are women coming into the industry and actually making a statement, like yourself and Izabella. I'm sure you are aware, I'm due to become president of the ISA next year. So I'm currently vice president. I want to do it because when I originally started Make It Happen 4 years ago, I didn't want to be seen as disappearing out of the industry. So then joined the International Sign Association. And actually, to be honest with you, I was just, yes, come on, let's do it for the girls. Really, it's as simple as that, because there's nothing wrong with, I know we've had a number of male presidents over, they're all fantastic, absolutely 100%. But again, I think possibly because of some of the younger ladies that have come on the course, I know certainly last year, and those ones that actually said to me, it was inspiring listening to you. One of them said, I wanted to be you. I mean, how amazing is that? So if I can inspire women by being the president of the ISA and people going, do you know what? Actually, this is an industry where we can all crack on, get into it. Very much so. That's what I would like to represent.
No, that's fantastic. Thank you, Sam, and good luck with that.
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Sam.
That's my pleasure.
And again, you're going. It will just be incredible to have you as a president of the ISA, and again representing women. And again, it's all about representation. People seeing you, like you said, and people in your training course have said it's so inspiring to listen to. So it's just so important to have women like yourself in leadership positions to basically show all of us that it can't be done and is not out of reach for all of us. So thank you so much, really.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for letting me join in today.
Brilliant. Perfect. So now we've got our speaker, Ian, from the Sign Group. Hello, Ian.
Hello, everybody.
Thank you so much for joining us today. It's great to have you. I think what's been great about today and about this talk is we've got people from the same industry but different areas with different perspectives, and that's what we want, just kind of put it all together. So tell us a bit more about yourself, Ian, and the Sign Group.
Right, you'll have to stop me because I've got a habit of talking too much. But I think it's been wonderful listening to everybody. I've seen different perspectives just by listening to what's been said today, which has been very informative. I can only talk about what I know, and I can only talk about the industry that I come from. And you'll probably be very surprised when I tell you that I've been doing it for nearly 38 years. I fell into the sign industry completely by accident. I still really don't know what I want to do as a profession, but for now, I'm very happy making signs. I love the idea of getting involved and helping people. It's something that the company, the policy that we work on, is something that we've instilled all the way through, where it's all down to the key is communication. Now, if I can bore you for 2 minutes and just take you back, because I think it's important to understand where we in the industry are now and how far you've come, because I know I go back a lot of years, but it's been quite amazing in recent times how things have accelerated, and it's largely down to organisations such as yourselves. And in all fairness, as Marcus was saying about governments not being as proactive as they could have been, I think that it's getting better. It's a long way from being right, but I do feel as though we are going in the right direction. Because if you consider that, not many years ago, computers, sadly, I can remember when I started my business, we didn't have a computer. We were making things by painting and screen printing and sign writing. And then all of a sudden, the machinery started to come onto the market. But it's only really in the late 90s and probably getting into the early 2000s, where things have escalated to a degree where it becomes interesting for school leavers. Lots of school leavers wouldn't have wanted to leave school and go to the side industry. They may have gone into engineering, but computer technology being taught at schools. I do remember that in the early 2000s, there was an issue where everybody who was leaving school wanted to work with computers. And the government realised that down the line, your manual workers, which are so important to keeping things rolling along, there's going to be a lack of people wanting to do manual things. Now, I'm not trying to say that ladies, women cannot do manual things, but it's not the industry as no longer like that anymore. It's actually moved on now with CNC routers, with computers and the programs that are available. It's opened up our industry to people with lots of varied interests, because as Sam said earlier, people don't wake up wanting to think, oh, I'd love to make signs. They come along by understanding what they can do and what they can give, and actually fall into the industry. We can see this by looking around at the staff that we employ here today. They are people who've come from university or from college, very keen about certain things, very keen about design, very keen about engineering. And of course, the computer industry now has programs are available which have integrated beautifully with the sign industry. So I can only say that, quite honestly, I think the future is very rosy. I think we've got considerably more people coming into the industry. I know on the occasion that we're trying to employ people to fill certain departments, I would say that maybe 30%, maybe even 40% of the people who apply for these jobs are female. And this was never the case if I go back in history again. It was nearly always chaps who came to them. So I think the progress that's coming along is good. And I think it's picking up speed. And I think it will continue to pick up speed, where we will see more people in the industry. If I go to our client base, the people I speak to regularly who come on, I can honestly say that I've come across considerably more females coming into the industry who are actually starting sign businesses, sometimes through the franchise media. But you've got to take into consideration that there's still a vast number of sign companies out there who only employ maybe 3 or 4 people. Sam could probably provide that information at a later date. And the family businesses. So sometimes the only way that women get involved with it is if they're part of that family. But it is an industry that's growing. There's considerably more businesses out there who employ 50 employees and more. And I genuinely know and feel that it's getting better. So I think the future is really good for women in our industry.
Yeah, I agree. I think, and it's just conversations like this, isn't it? It's we always have to start somewhere, and, maybe have a conversation about gender diversity. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily make people very comfortable to have that conversation, but once we do have it, things do move into the right direction for the better. Ian, it would be really interesting to get your thoughts of, obviously you've touched upon that, on how the industry has changed throughout the years and how we do get more women. And like you said, when you have vacancies, you have a higher number of women applying and getting in touch. But how have you, as a business, as a sign group, done anything in particular, or is this anything in particular you're planning to do to encourage more women? And like Sam was mentioning just now, you do get a lot of women that are interested in careers in, marketing, graphic design, maybe business development, project management, but not as many women. I haven't seen as many women as I would like to see on the production line, manufacturing the signage. Like you said, there's a lot of machineries out there that would do a lot of the work. So I think it should, it gives people the advantage of working with new technology, but also working manual. So do you think, is this something that you are planning to do for the future to encourage more women to join your business, but not necessarily just that, just on the office-based roles, but also on the manufacturing side?
Very difficult question to put forward or to answer, is that, in all fairness, Izabella. We tend to employ people on the merits when they come along for the job. Now, depending on the area that they may be working, I suppose, really, if I'm brutally honest, yes, we could be coloured in thinking that this person is better suited to be in that department. I was very thinking about what you were saying about other workshops. And I think about people who are on the workshop now, physically working on the workshop floor. We don't employ a lady. Having said that, the person who's in charge of the workshop floor is a lady. It's just how things have gone along. We've had women working on the workshop floor in the past, but at the moment we haven't got anybody. It's all down to, you want to fill that gap. With a small business, it's important that we feel as though the person that we employ is correct. I don't look upon employing a gender. I look upon employing the person who I think is correct for it. Consequently, if they can do the job, they'll get it. I can't be any more honest than that, quite frankly.
No, I really appreciate that. So thank you very much for your honesty. And I agree. I think it's important for to hire the right person regardless of their gender, and that's why it's important to encourage more women to get into these areas, and so they can get to the point where they do want to work on the shop floor. I know that from a recruitment perspective, I would love to see and to speak to more women who are working in on the shop floor in the workshops. So yeah, thank you very much for that.
No, thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I'd like to say thank you, Ian, and I'm really, really disappointed that we can't be in that amazing demo facility with you today. Well, but really appreciate all the support that you've given us, and we will make it to Leeds one day in person.
I would look forward to that, Sarah. You are very welcome, all of you, at any point. I know things are difficult with COVID at the moment, but if you find yourself in the Leeds area and you just want a free cup of tea or coffee, give me a ring. There'll be always one available for you.
Right, so thank you so much once again. Thank you to everyone for taking part and just being with us today and sharing your ideas and opinions. It's so important to understand. And I think for Sarah and I, it's very important to work with male ambassadors like Marcus and Ian, and having been part of this discussion, because I do think it's very, very important for men to be part of this discussion, because it's something that concerns us all, really, working toward a more gender balanced world, really, not just within our industry. So we really appreciate everyone's time today. What we want to do now is we want to end with a question and just get your honest opinion on this and your thoughts. So we would like to know what everyone thinks that the industry can do more moving forward when it comes to gender diversity. Do you want to start, Sophie, and just tell us what you think?
Of course, yeah. This is a question that I pondered for a while, because I'm fortunate in my role at the charity to see a lot of young women coming through the print industry and the other sectors that we support. But my answer is to say that I think that every organisation and every manager has a responsibility to make their company a great place to work. And if together we make our organisations a great place to work, then we make the industry a great place to work. I don't necessarily mean the investment of cash and doing things that are beyond the reach of lots of small businesses. I'm talking about cultural change and leading with a different way, perhaps, than has been done in the past. And I believe that if we can drive that cultural change within the industry, that will make the industry a really attractive place for young talent, whether that young talent is men or women. And within that cultural change, my ask from the printing charity's perspective is to consider employee mental health and well-being. And that's what I like to talk to business owners about, that where they can make changes to improve the culture and improve the support that they give their people, so that ultimately, with just investment of their own time and energy, they can make their organisation a great and inclusive place to work, and it will yield benefits, in my opinion.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that, Sophie. Karis, what do you think when it comes to the industry? What can we do more?
Yeah, I definitely agree, with everything Sophie just said. And I think, to draw on, I was lucky enough to host the Young Guns in Print Day at the Future Print Virtual Summit. And one of the things that we talked about there, which I think has some crossover here, is attracting but also retaining talented young people, and it's not just attracting people, it's making sure it's somewhere that they want to work for a long time and build a career somewhere. And in terms of retaining women, it is about changing your company if it needs changing, but making sure your company is somewhere where there's that strong culture. Is it somewhere, is it a flexible business? As I've mentioned before, women tend to be the primary caregivers of children. Is it somewhere where a working mother knows she'll be comfortable embarking on a career, or taking maternity leave and returning to work and knowing that it's a secure job and she can continue building a career there? Is there pay transparency? Do you know you're going to be working somewhere where there's equal pay? Is there a gender balance? Is there a good number of women that work there, women in leadership? Is it somewhere where there's a gender neutral kind of recruitment process, and you're going to be kind of treated fairly even from the beginning? And we from the Young Guns in Print, it was about values. Younger people want to work somewhere that shares their values, somewhere authentic. And it's the same if you want to attract women, make sure that it's somewhere. Is there opportunity to progress? Do you know that there's developmental programs? Is there training available that helps women progress in their career? I think businesses need to take a look at themselves and see whether or not they're somewhere where women can embark on a successful career, rather than, we don't want to be, there's so much, it's almost kind of looked on as a women breaking the glass ceiling and succeeding in a male dominated world. Maybe we don't want to be breaking glass ceilings or succeeding in a male dominated world. Maybe we just want to have a successful career on our own merits, just like men get to. So I think there's exactly like Sophie said, our business is a great place to work. Is there a great culture that means women can thrive there?
Yeah. No, I completely agree. It's a mixture of all those factors, but sometimes it is, you are just doing it for yourself, and you do want to have a fair chance as the man to have the career just like everyone else, really. So thank you for that, Karis. Marcus, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, just following on. Am I on mute? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, you can hear me. Sorry. Yeah, just following on what Karis said there, for the Young Guns in Print was interesting that day. And I think it was partly because Karis led it and she is a young gun in print. And also what we found was basically the gender balance was better than the rest of the program. The rest of the program was probably a bit more, I'd be unkind, but a bit more middle-aged. So I think there is a generational shift. And I think it's not just because women are finding voice. I think younger men are much more aware of it as an issue. What is, I've got teenage kids, and what you're allowed to say. And frankly, I think older people are catching up with the new vocabulary and the new normal, for want of a better word, of what you can and can't say, and also what is right and what is wrong. So then it does need to be a level of education for people like me from the younger generation and from women, which is what you guys are doing. So I understand, and then I can see it. and more people will respond, I think, to that. The other thing I think I'd say is with the wealth of technology and social media and the virtual events and this kind of thing and lots of other things, is you don't need to ask permission. So you can actually just write a blog. You can you know, say stuff on video and put it out there. You can take control a bit more, perhaps. I think men are far more typically, generally, right, aggressive and assertive and all of these things. But I think that this kind of communication thing is something women have an advantage of over men. And I'd just like to see more of women just saying it, not waiting to be invited, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah. And the other thing was, I do think there are more women in marketing roles in our industry, yet they're not as visible as they should be. Marketing is about communicating. Women are brilliant at marketing. It's a lot about creativity, and it's a nice mix of creativity and, you know, organizational skills, of which women are brilliant at, but often they're not the people that put forward to speak. I think that, and that I find that I'm dealing with brilliant marketing people that are women, and then the person that's speaking is a bloke, and I'm like, don't you want to speak? And so there is a shyness there, or the business isn't inclined to put forward the women. I think that's wrong. So both are wrong, really. It's just kind of really, the women are there, as we said, 45%. So just really sort of finding that channel and finding that voice. That's my view.
I agree. Thank you very much for that, Marcus. And I agree. Marketing is just so it's such an important part of a business, especially nowadays when it is all about marketing and how you market yourself in social media. So it's a very, very important part of the business. So yeah, I agree. Thank you for that, Marcus. Sam, what do you think? What are your thoughts with regards to this, and what can the industry do more of?
I think at the moment, Izabella, more so sort of concentrating on just new people coming into the industry, whether that be male or female. Currently, you've got your MVQs for sign making, and so instantly I hear the word sign making, and I'm naturally drawn to thinking, I'm sure you are, Ian, that all of a sudden you're in a factory, okay? And the reality is quite a number of years ago, when I was again in the factory and running sales, is that I was showing an apprentice round and went into the stock cupboard, and Ian, you'll definitely associate with this, is that I was showing them and saying, look, how you've got to be careful. And the next minute I was getting squashed by 2.5 metre by 1250 sheet of 30mm acrylic, and believe me, it hurt. I was pushing it away from me. So I think I've diversified there, but that potentially could have put somebody off because of the fact that it was suddenly really physical. I couldn't get this sheet off me. Where I was going to this, I think we need to make the opportunities more aware in general. So, you know, with universities and schools, because when you think about, okay, let's go into print or let's go into signs, I don't think people realise how many opportunities there are actually within that. And I think that what we should be doing is creating that awareness. And one of the things that the International Sign Association do overseas, again, which we're going to try to encourage over here, is actually running open days. So actually get people in so that they can see the marketing roles, that they can see the design, the graphic design, they can see the sales opportunity. But in order to do that, it would be really nice to have a very diverse mix of people in that, because as Ian said, you naturally, sorry Ian, I'm picking on you today, but you naturally fall into, if you come into the building where I am, it is predominantly men in this facility. And so if you're trying to show diversity, we need that diversity there in the first place, I think, is where I'm trying to go to. Because if you're going to bring people in and say, look, women can work here, and then you walk into the factory and there's 100 men, you might feel a little bit intimidated. But I do think that by actually creating open days and actually seeing how many opportunities there are, it would create greater awareness, and actually more women might think, actually, there is a role for me. Because I definitely didn't think 19 years ago, oh, I'm going to go into to trade manufacturing. Far from it. I was a wedding coordinator. How can you get two so different things? but it was all around the fact it was customer service. So I think what we need to do, Izabella and Sarah, is just creating that awareness that there are actually some really fantastic roles within print, within manufacturing, within signage, not all necessarily getting squashed in cupboards by super heavy sheets, but you know, that might suit somebody else. Somebody else
I think
might like weightlifting, just wasn't me.
Maybe someone else then.
Exactly.
But yeah, thank you, Sam. I think I agree. You know, I think education and having the open days, like you mentioned, I think that is very, very important, because, like you said, you know, from the outside. So for me personally, years ago, I didn't even know that this was an industry. So to know that this is an industry, and you've got so many areas which you can go into and so many opportunities, I think it is very important. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the education side of it is key. And that's the bit that I'm really sort of quite passionate about and want to focus on. And that's why we are sort of working and trying to collaborate with people like Sophie at the printing charity, with what they're doing to encourage young people into the industry, the likes of the BPIF, and some local companies that we're starting to collaborate with, because we need to get the message through to the grassroots, really. Because it's such a big industry, it's so diverse, there's so many different roles that people, you know, we've all had that conversation, you know, across the dinner table when somebody, oh, what do you do for a living? And it's like, oh, right, okay. But there's so much to it. So I think we need to get to them, like you say, whether they're male or female, at a young age, just, you know, to make them aware what they've potentially got ahead of them. So
can I just say, I mean, again, this is you know, again, this was seen as a little bit controversial for some people, but when I started Make It Happen, I employed a lady, then I employed another lady, and that wasn't intentionally, they were just amazing ladies to work with. So then we created the email address, rather than sales@MakeIH, we created ladies@MakeIH. And the raised eyebrows, at the end of the day, it was just a bit of fun. Do people remember ladies@MakeIH? Yes, they do. But, you know, it's funny because I've actually had several people say to me, well, what are you going to do if you ever employ a chap? Well, I don't know, blow cat. I'd no idea. But at that time, I was employing, and I am employing ladies. So ladies
and men at.
Yeah, ladies and men at. It doesn't matter, does it, at the end of the day?
No, I agree. And again, it's something memorable, isn't it? And again, yes, it's a great marketing trick there, really, to be fair.
It gets mixed opinions, Izabella, but, you know.
It gets people talking, so.
It does.
That's what's important.
That's always a good thing.
Absolutely.
Definitely. And now, Ian, please tell us a bit more about what you think. Obviously, we touched upon education and open days as well, which I know you guys you do, like you just said earlier. We're all more than welcome. What do you think?
I think it's a can of worms, quite frankly, because again, some of the things that Sam was saying there, I was in total agreement with. But I don't think it starts with people thinking, oh, I want to make signs. If somebody said I wanted to be a chef, I think we could all agree we've got a really good idea of what that person would do when they went to work. If somebody says, oh, I want to make signs, they have no idea of the broad spectrum of skills that would be required to make a sign, or indeed arrange a rollout of signs. I think it's too late in some respects for people to think I want to do the job. I think we need to be getting people at college, university, schools. I think they need some kind of education from us to tell them about our industry. And I think that could make it more attractive to people if they understood it. Now, that's a massive can of worms in order to do that. But I do remember a good few years ago, we were involved with the local authorities who contacted us to find out if we would be interested to make ourselves available for students to come to us for a week. They weren't paid. We paid them to cover expenses to come, but there was no insistence from the local authorities for us to pay them. But what that did, that gave the opportunity for people to come, work in the work environment. And the thing that I did with these people is I made sure that when somebody phoned up for a sign, I took that person with me to site and had the conversation with them. They then came back and we sat down and went through the quoting side of it. And then hopefully that turned into a job while they were with us. And then they went through the production cycle. So they went and sat with somebody who was doing the design. They sat with somebody then who was ordering all the materials. And then they went into the workshops and they worked at the side of the people doing it. Now, I do stress they couldn't work. They weren't allowed to touch machinery, mainly because of insurance issues, and they weren't actually employees. We had to get in touch with our insurers to make sure that this was okay. Brilliant process. Doesn't happen anymore. Not available. So I think if there's somewhere that, as an organisation, that we could go forward with this, I think it's the local authorities who we need help from through the education to be able to encourage people to come. Yeah. Extending that further, there are people out there who are trying to find a job, and we see this regularly. We put an advert out there for people to come. I can get 60 or 70 replies. 60 of them won't turn up. You will get maybe 5 or 6 people who come to the interview. And the only reason they've done that is because they've ticked a box, probably to make sure that they get the income for being unemployed. The people who come for the job, again, 50% of those are not interested. They've been pushed along by the partner at home, the mum, the process, or wherever they're involved with finding us from, and they've just come to tick a box. So the quality of staff that you get is difficult to find, quite frankly. And you'll know about this, Izabella. I'm sure what I'm saying is something that you've probably heard before.
Absolutely.
But I think if they're grown up and they've left school, they're already on the way. I think we need to get them sooner than that. And I think it would work because I know it did before.
Yeah, I agree. I think, everything that everyone's mentioned today, it just makes sense. And we just need to have a bigger push outside the industry as much as within the industry to encourage people, especially younger people, to join and look into it and have an interest for the industry. So yeah, thank you all so very much. It's been great listening to everyone talk and just get everyone's opinions and thoughts, and we can't really thank you enough for being with us at our first ever Women in Science and Graphics discussion.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Brilliant. So now we're going to move on to our Zoom open session, where we will be answering everyone's questions. We're here to listen to ideas, opinions, of how we can push the industry and move the industry into a more gender balanced industry, and how we can get things going and get things moving and talking about it. I think talking is the most important thing. Perfect. Thank you so much, everyone. Take care. We'll see you in a bit.